Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fireside Chat with Interlock. I'm here with Rick, who's the CEO of Interlock. The purpose of this session is to learn more about the project, learn a bit more about Rick. Before we get started, I want to encourage you for the last panel to please interact with us, post your questions in the chat, get involved, and we can get to them a little bit later in the conversation. So welcome, Rick. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. So let's get you to present some of the slides and tell us a little bit more about what you guys are building.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously I'm Rick, the CEO of Interlock, and the story of what we're working on kind of is born from years of working in cybersecurity. So I've been in cybersecurity for over 15 years. I've been running startups since 2013. And what we came to realize from the cybersecurity perspective is that there was a lack of innovation in the market kind of as a whole. And we really felt like it was no longer about how enterprises and companies help individuals stay secure within their companies themselves, because that typically doesn't work out as well as you think. It's complicated. It affects employees and makes their computers run slow. And then as an individual, it kind of removes any sort of agency you have over your data. And it also removes agency you have over your own security. So we started building Interlock with the idea that we could bring security to everyone and also incentivize that process. So Interlock is decentralized security incentivized for everyone. And what we're building really revolves around, what we're trying to solve rather, really revolves around two problems. One of them is essentially a lack of data around what's going wrong when, say, a hack happens on a company or even an individual gets hacked. And then the other is that people don't really care about security, like I just mentioned. It's from a company perspective, they take the word of the company, and then the company is really meant to manage however many thousand employees they have and keep them safe in a world where it's really hard to be safe online. So, under 50% of people in the US are doing something to stay private or protected across 15 devices. So that means even though that's, almost half, it still means there's a lot of people doing very little for themselves to stay safe. And that means that 75% of companies, and probably even more than that, of individuals are experiencing phishing on a daily basis. They're getting phishing attacks, they're getting them sent in messages, they're getting them on LinkedIn and Discord and Telegram. And more than 75% of those companies that receive those phishing attacks actually fall for them and they become breached. So Interlock is essentially built to innovate on cybersecurity and bring it to the people. Like I mentioned, by integrating blockchain into cybersecurity, we're able to create a product that keeps individuals safe as well as organizations. And then the outcome of that is a data platform that enables operational and security intelligence back to essentially organizations. And we want to change the paradigm from just companies to thinking about everyone and further. And it's really easy to understand how it works. You install Interlock into your browser, which it currently is a browser extension. You browse the web securely, and then you choose what data you want to share with the Interlock network. You have complete agency and control over what data you want to share. Normally, websites and companies are usually taking your data without any sort of control, your control over it, and then they're taking it from you. In this case, you actually have the ability to share exactly what you want to share. And the idea is depending on how much you want to share and what you want to share, you earn a token for sharing that data with us. And then you're protected individually by an enterprise grade product that keeps you secure at the same level an enterprise would be, except during the whole time, you're earning a token for simply keeping your DeFi wallet safe and stopping phishing attacks in your browser. And the data that we collect that you're able to share with us is essentially key to what we do. We collect the data that companies need. So everyone everywhere stays protected by Interlock, and enterprises also use Interlock. The Interlock network verifies from a security perspective what they're doing. And then we take that data that you've opted into sharing with us back to our network, and we turn it into the things enterprises need to essentially consume to keep themselves secure, as well as to keep their employees, as well as their users, their clients, and their consumers secure as well as essentially improving our network. And that's really a little brief overview of what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rick. I think those are some crazy stats. And it sounds like you guys are really building the solution to make people care about cybersecurity, which is really important. So you kind of touched on this in the last panel a bit, but I want you to expand more. You had a really interesting career and I guess before your career journey over the course of your life, from kind of the dark side of cybersecurity, I'd say. So can you give us a bit more
Yeah.
color on your background and what brought you into the space to create Interlock?
Sure. Yeah. And I can tell lots of funny stories, but I'll keep it relatively brief. It all started, believe it or not, with I wanted tickets to a go-kart track with my friends. I'm not kidding. And I saw the web application that allowed me to be able to purchase tickets online, and I was actually, maybe this is embarrassing, I was old enough to probably purchase them with a card, but I still wanted to go to the go-kart track. And instead of messing around with it at the time and not really having a job, I used a SQL injection attack on the website to get into the database. The website is long gone and everything is long secure, and there's no problems with what I was doing anymore. But that led me down the path of wanting to be essentially what was an ethical hacker. I went from a black hat hacker to becoming an ethical hacker in 2007. 2006, 2007, I hacked MySpace using a cross-site scripting vulnerability, which I then turned into a DEF CON talk and presented at DEF CON in 2007, which opened the door to my career as a cybersecurity professional, working for banks, working for consulting firms, consulting for other companies individually. And then that leading me down the path of wanting to bring my hacking skills back to companies and help them secure themselves, which eventually evolved into me helping individuals secure themselves. And that's really kind of the evolution of why Interlock was born. Learning everything I knew could go wrong, and then thinking about that even for 25, 30 years, it's really been going that wrong. Since essentially the beginning of the internet, social engineering has worked. And I've always wanted to figure out how we prevent people from being social engineered. Is really what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great purpose to build a company. So can you tell me a little bit more about the team that's behind this project?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I told you about myself, and I'm the CEO and founder of it. My co-founder, Erhan, we've been working together since 2013. So we were friends before that, which Rachel, you might not even know, but I've known Erhan for quite some time. And we actually built Interlock together. Erhan's background is purely in development. He's really been an engineer his whole life. He actually had his first company in high school, and then he sold it nominally well to IBM before he even graduated, if I'm not mistaken, maybe right after he graduated high school. So he's been doing engineering his whole life. And then that brought him into, of course, blockchain engineering and things like that. And then the remainers of our team are really people that we have known and worked with in the past. Nick is one of our principal engineers, building out essentially all of the blockchain related things, because he's really a cloud expert and a blockchain expert at this point. And we're really happy to have Andrew, our CMO, on board, who has many, many years of cybersecurity experience as well as startup experience. We have a really strong team that isn't just built on us trying to find people. It's built through the human connections that we've come across in security.
I mean, it sounds like a rock star team. And I also think that's something that's really important, just to have work with people you trust as well.
Absolutely, especially in this industry or in blockchain,
Yeah.
right? You can accidentally encounter the wrong people, which is what this is all about.
Exactly. Yeah. So you had an existing business before this that was more Web 2 focused. What kind of led to the transition into Web 3? And why do you see this succeeding in Web 3? Also, hi to your cat.
I was gonna say, sorry, I had to push her off the table. She's okay. The transition from Web 2 to Web 3 happened because we felt that cybersecurity market in Web 2 was really focused on marketing, and then still on what I was mentioning, with enterprises being the sole focus of this, not having users within organizations or outside of organizations having any agency. And we saw a lot of these companies creating the same solutions as other ones, leading to this super competitive landscape of people that essentially, well, lying isn't the term, but snake oil seems to resonate pretty well with solutions that fail even the most simple third-party checks, but have the largest revenues of any other company in the cybersecurity market. So for us, that led us down the path of, we want to bring the data agency, as well as the possibility for people to earn, as well as to make individuals care. And that's why we moved over to Web3. And the reason why we think this is going to work is because we have enabled something that has essentially prior been unavailable, which is using everyone as a network of sensors. Network of sensors gets thrown around a lot in cybersecurity as a method of detecting problems or something going wrong. we want to use everyone as a method to keep an eye out. Be essentially what it is like you're earning for keeping an eye out, and then we aggregate that information to make the network better, make other organizations more secure, and then make our own users more secure in the process. Just creating this self-fulfilling prophecy of better security for everyone and always on top of everyone's mind, instead of being this background thing that can go wrong.
For sure. So I guess then building on that, like, why don't people care about cybersecurity? Like, this has obviously been a problem since, I guess, the dawn of the internet, where people have been scammed.
Right.
Probably before that, they're just more traditional ways. And then how is this platform really incentivizing these users to care about protecting themselves?
Absolutely. So if people were watching the last panel, Santiago, who was on the panel, mentioned the sort of the cross section of convenience and security. And he mentioned that there can be no convenience, it has to be all security. And while he's right, the reality is untrue. The reason why that individuals typically don't care about security is because it makes their day difficult. If they have to remember a 24-character password, they don't want to. And I have seen that personally with my family, with my friends, people who I know who run other companies, who say things like, I just use the same password because I can't remember them all. And I'm like, you can't tell me that sort of stuff. I'm your friend and I'm a cybersecurity person. You can't tell me that stuff. But it really revolves around that it makes it too difficult. So the way to bridge that gap is there's two ways. One of them is to make the user experience on the security so dead easy that people don't notice that it's happening and they feel comfortable and they're happy with what's going on. And then the second, like you've already alluded to, is the incentivization mechanism, which is that if you use our product and choose to share data, we essentially give you earnings off of our Inter token. And then the ability to use that token within the network is opened up, and you have the ability to earn more of that token by helping us improve our network with detection and joining our bounty hunting group, which we're going to call the vampire hunters, basically, and joining those groups and essentially just continuing to improve our network while you, as the individual who just decided to join, get something out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I like the vampire hunters.
Everybody seems to.
That's great. So I guess there's a question actually in the chat. Someone is comparing this to Brave with its BAT token. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brave has a great model, and I'm happy that Brave did that because they paved the way for companies like ours, very honestly. But Brave's model is very different. Their value proposition back to the user is mostly related to privacy, related to ads and networks that are doing tracking. For us, our proposition is back to you is that we want to keep you secure from getting your MetaMask hacked. We want to keep you secure from getting your NFT stolen. We want to secure DeFi in the same way that CeFi is currently essentially secured. So our value prop to the end user is essentially way more security driven. And the type of data that we're collecting and then reusing within our network is not demographic advertising type data or individual user type data. It's more focused around threats. So one of the best things that we can collect from an individual using our product is essentially, if you have gone out and opened an email today and you clicked a URL that was trying to steal your seed phrase or your credit card number. It doesn't have to just be all blockchain, but or crypto related. If someone trying to steal your password to PayPal or your Facebook, those sort of new URLs that you encountered get reported back to us, which is clearly just an immense help to detection methodologies, being able to add that to our threat intelligence and say that these are the new sites that are popping up online targeting DeFi users. These are the new sites that are popping up online trying to trick people who own NFTs. And then we can utilize that to improve not only our network, but all the networks of our customers and other people, which is different than Brave, circling back around.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about the user side of it and how easy it is to implement for them and how it goes about protecting them. But what about the companies that are actually buying this data that you guys are collecting? What types of companies are looking to buy this data from user browsing?
So there's two aspects, and I will share the other one too, which is that companies also use our product as a method to secure their employees within, because we are one of the first products that protects threats that are focused in the browser, which clearly in today's day and age, pretty much everything people are doing is cloud-based in your browser. Your operating system is your browser. But furthermore than that, they have the ability to essentially consume that threat intelligence data, as well as lots of different other types of data that we can essentially transform our collection from. And the companies that typically purchase it are like large cryptocurrency exchanges. One of our customers is one of the top cryptocurrency exchanges in the United States, as well as government type agencies and large enterprises as a whole. Pretty much not every bit of data will want to be consumed. Not everyone will want to consume every bit of data, rather, but threat intelligence is pretty much consumed by every large organization you can think of, whether directly or indirectly. Directly being they consume it and put it into their systems themselves, or indirectly by the security products that they purchase consume threat intelligence and then are fed back into the organization to keep them secure.
Yeah. So kind of on that note, what is next for Interlock in terms of what users and companies can have access to?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the next coming months, we're going to be building out our essentially what is our first consumer facing product with earnings built in. So being able to share that data and earn rewards. So that will be Q1 of 2022 when that's released. And around that same time, we're thankful that we've actually already created a large data set with our enterprise related customers. So shortly into 2022 as well, Q1, Q2, we'll also be releasing our data platform that will enable those companies to start to consume that information and then use it however they see fit within their security plans.
Awesome, that's great. So something for people to look forward to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will mention that we do have a sign up on our website, the Interlock website, which is interlock.network, a sign up for the essentially being one of the first people who can use our new consumer version early next year.
That's great. All right, so interlock.network, go there. So as someone who has been a multi-founder in the space of Web 2, Y Combinator graduate, do you have any advice for someone that's looking to get into the Web 3 space and how to build and succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think the way to think about it in particular is to try to picture what you can do with decentralization and why it matters to what you're building. So some people want to do it because it's a hot new area to build in, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's more important to consider what exactly are you building and how does decentralization benefit from it? And then more so, how do you go about building that is to bring people on board alongside with you who have either done it before or know enough to be dangerous to start thinking about your plans and what you need to do. And that's really what helped me. And I am at this point, I've founded, I think technically 4 different companies, mostly in the Web 2 space at this point. And I really think that this is where we want to innovate, which is why I've switched over to building a blockchain. And for me, it was all getting in touch with the right people, looking at the right things, but also making sure I framed my head from the perspective of, is decentralization actually the way I need to go with this? Or am I just doing it because I think it's cool or exciting? Which again, in some cases, that's the answer and it needs no other answer. But most of the time you want to consider, how does this benefit me? Is this worth the switch? Because in some cases, you're going to encounter pushback because you went to this new technology.
Yeah, well, from my end, we are glad you came over to the decentralization side.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we have another question from the audience, which to be honest, I don't quite understand. But what do the panel think is a realistic solution for custody at mass scale?
Interesting. I think that's probably a question for the last panel, right? Because we were just on the panel. Can you repeat it again? I don't actually have it open. I apologize. When the internet was lagging, I closed the chat.
No worries. So what is a realistic solution for custody at mass scale?
Realistic solution for custody. It's a good question. My thoughts around it are always going to gravitate towards individuals. I know that mass scale and custody is usually a problem because you're talking about a large amount of people having something of a large amount of value. And when you do that, they start to look centralized. That's the problem. It isn't necessarily centralized, but when you're talking about if you're talking about custodial wallets in particular, you're talking about a lot of people's data in one location or multiple locations if they are decentralized. But realistically speaking, it's still what I'm looking at it. My brain is looking at it from a TAC target perspective, and I see it as this massive target, right? So it's something that I think non-custodial is the way to go. I really do think so. And then that's what I use personally. So when I start to think about it, well, does that work at mass scale? Because then when you're talking about real scale, you're talking about people who may not be as savvy as the people on the panel, the people who are listening into diffusion today. But it is something to think about, how we bring that sort of an idea, or in this case too, spinning it right back around, how you bring security to the masses and have it be understandable, digestible, and something easy enough for everyone to want to do. Not a direct answer, because I don't think there is one, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
Well, I think it was great. So another question on kind of how your product works. So if you're gathering all of this browsing data, how are you securing the data? And aren't the users giving up privacy?
So I'm going to start at the end, which is, aren't the users giving up privacy? The answer to that is no, because they're actually completely opting into all of it. Secondarily, the data is private. It isn't tied to an individual identity. It isn't tied to an individual wallet. It isn't tied to a user. And the other thing I'll mention about that, when you think about what the data looks like, because it is private, if you were browsing the web today using my product, using Interlock, and you encountered a fake Coinbase website, just as an example, a fake Coinbase website, and it was URL was really close to Coinbase, it almost tricked you as an individual. You almost typed something in, you were ready, but our product caught it at the very last minute, which is what it does. Before you enter your credentials, it catches it. Would you have a problem with sharing that URL with friends or with other people in the world, even to say that, by the way, this nasty fake Coinbase URL just popped up in my browser and I almost lost my money? So like, I'm telling everyone in my Discord channel and my friends, like, don't click this if you happen to see it, or, it comes through my company that I work for, and you knock on your neighbor's door and like, hey, did you see that? Point being is, that's not particularly sensitive information, but probably the most valuable thing that Interlock can collect. So at that point, is there some privacy implications? I won't say no, but at the same aspect, for the most part, what we're trying to do here is collect that sort of data, which doesn't really have any impact on you as an individual. And even if it did, what would that really mean for you? But that being said, we are privacy-centric folks, and we built the product together to be something where you have the agency and the control of doing that. As far as keeping the data safe, it is fully encrypted. It is not completely decentralized. We are using essentially a hybrid model there, where some of it will be centralized, some of it will be decentralized, with the goal of eventually moving it to decentralization. But I will tell you, off of our essential smallish user base compared to what we want to have in the future, we've already collected 3 to 4 terabytes of data from those folks. And 3 to 4 terabytes of data sitting on the blockchain is actually really expensive for the most part to transmit back and forth, especially since our product does real-time checking and analysis of websites, which probably out of the scope out of this conversation right now, but it is kept extremely secure, especially because we have the ability to keep some of it central.
Awesome. So I guess just out of curiosity, how long have you guys been amassing this data?
We started building the data set that we have right now actually in the end of 2019, roughly. So it has been in existence for a while, but it was mostly focused on little small pieces of that data. We then later in 2020, the end of 2020, enabled more collection, things like being able to understand risk of browser extensions, being able to understand third-party requests. And we also have built in what essentially is the largest filter list in the world. So if you go into your uBlock or Brave and you go on to your filter list and click which ones you want to use, we've aggregated those, and then literally everything else you could possibly imagine to create the largest filter list in the world, which also helps us collect data, although that's a little stale of data. So we've been adding to it for quite some time, but as that's with a super small user base compared to what we're about to see.
Yeah, so we'll see that explode in a couple of months.
Yeah,
great. Last question, and then I think we're going to be up on time. Is this only going to be available as a browser extension? Is this going to be something that you will bring to a phone app? And then just a question on the kinds of rewards that people can expect to see from this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question about, is it just going to be an extension? We have plans to work with existing browser-based wallets and either other wallets that have applications, non-custodial wallets that have applications, or wallets like MetaMask. I won't say MetaMask because we haven't discussed with them, but things like MetaMask that work in the browser, being able to embed ourselves directly into wallets like that to bring our security, which we'll call active security, to a wallet that has passive security, essentially, and being able to enable different security features and protect people at the time of threat, like our product does right now, while then also giving them opportunities to earn and things like that. So it will expand beyond just being our extension into other types of applications. Mobile is tough. It is planned, but I don't exactly know our execution just yet. We have lots of potentials up on the whiteboard of what that looks like, but we're working on which one is going to be best, because it goes back to that idea of convenience versus security. While security is always on top, convenience needs to be there, or we won't have any adoption. And if there's no adoption, the network won't get better. And then as far as rewards, it's our own token, which then, like I mentioned, can be used within the network.
Okay, awesome. So I think that actually brings us perfectly to the end of this. So I'd like to thank you, Rick, so much for telling us more about this. This was a great chat. And thank you to those of us that have been here all day, all 3 days. We really appreciate you getting involved and watching our Diffusion Digital Conference. So up next, we have the closing remarks from Aaron, our CTO and founding partner. So hope to see you guys all there. And thank you so much again, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.